As we continue our look now into the parameters within Ableton Live, we're going to deal with the sample parameters now. If you have access to the project files, you're going to open up a warping set that we've used previously, but we're going to use it again now. We're going to deal with this section down in here. Now, a reminder that we have these reveal and activate hide buttons down here that open up different access. So to get to the sample edit parameters, you have to be first of all on an audio waveform, and all these are audio. And then you have to make sure this button is enabled. And hide the others just because they give us more screen space to see what we're doing. Okay, great. Now let's jump in. The first thing we see in the sample box here is actually the name of the audio file that's inside this clip. Now as you notice, I hover my mouse above that, it becomes underlined. Clicking on that reveals where this audio file is on our hard drive. It opens up the browser and immediately tells me where that is. And here's the parent folder. I could go up if I wanted to. But anyway, that's a quick way to find out where the file is, and that's its name. Below that we see the settings that were used for recording this audio file. This is not anything we can change, it just makes us aware of what we're dealing with. The sampling rate was that used for CD audio, or 44,100 samples per second. Next to that we see that 24 bits, or zeros and ones, were used to store each sample. That's very good quality. And then off to the right we see that it was 2 channels, or stereo audio, left and right. You can see that over here. Down below that we see an edit button, and let's go to our preferences to understand this. Coming up to the top for live, preferences, and clicking. And then we want to make sure that we have the file folder tab access clicked on. Now over here we see a sample editor. You can browse and find one. Many people who have Ableton Live use Propellerhead Reason, but I have Soundtrack Pro already installed, so I've chosen that to be my editor. Now what this means is as soon as I click on edit, it's going to temporarily release the sample from its memory and pull it up in my editor. Let's watch that. So again, we can see the sample is offline and Soundtrack Pro is launching automatically for us. Now we can't see or access that sample inside Ableton Live until we're through. So whatever editing we might do here, changing the gain, roughing up the beats with some effects, etc., all that would be done. And then when we quit, I'm going to go ahead and quit Soundtrack Pro. We come back into Ableton Live. So as we left our editor, it automatically brought the waveform back into view and we can work with it in here. Next to that we have the Save button, which is very crucial. Now as you see inside this sample box we have lots of parameters, and we've already talked about the warping somewhat. Now remember, when we put warp markers in, it took quite a bit of time. Let's come back up to this Help Me file. Now we used this clip in an early demonstration, and I did correct the warp timing by placing markers. But I deliberately did not save because I cannot permanently alter this file, or when you get it, then you can't work on it. But once you do add in warp markers, you definitely want to click on Save. That also includes any settings with this clip that have to do with transposition, volume, beats, etc. So anytime you change any of these settings, which we'll continue to discuss, click on your Save button right away. Next to that is a reverse file. Let's choose a different sound for this. I'm going to the arpeggiator. I'm going to reverse that, and it's going to take this whole file and play it backwards. Let's reverse. And there we can see it. I'm going to begin playback. Now, 2 things happen. Of course, we get the backwards sounding effect from certain sounds, but the order of these notes that were played in this arpeggiator have been reversed also. If you click on the reverse button again, it turns around backwards, which really means now we're back to the original. Let's listen to this. Now this can be quite a great effect, especially if you're doing drums and things like that. But it's very straightforward. Reverse just simply turns everything around. Now high Q is a factor that enables Ableton Live to dedicate more computer brain power to any of the processing we may be doing. That includes warp markers, changing the tempo, and transposing a sample around. Now as we do these, we're going to get a better quality and can move things further in tempo and in transposition if we engage high Q. The negative aspect of that is the more you use samples with high Q, the more load you're putting on your computer's brain or CPU, and it's likely to overload and not be able to keep up. So bear that in mind. Next to that is the fade button, which by default comes on. What it does is in the very beginning, very fragment section here, it creates a small fade at the beginning and also at the end. And that way when you create a loop, it's more likely to not have a pop or click. Now this file does not need it, so I'm going to go ahead and disable that. Again, freeing up a little bit of the computer's brain. RAM simply takes this file and asks the computer to keep it in its flash memory, its non-hard disk memory. This means it can get to it faster. Sometimes when you play a long file, it will slow down your computer and it can't keep up, so then we need to enable RAM, which means you need a lot of RAM. Okay, we're going to stop here and pick up these other parameters in the following section.